Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Around the nation, right here, Jeff Waldorf here with you. Got a great show for you guys today on this Tuesday, which is kind of like a Monday, because I wasn't here on Monday, so it's Tuesday, but it's a Monday. On a week where I don't have Thursday or Friday. So look, this is going to be very interesting. Holidays, right? I think all of you are, I don't know, I don't know about all of you, but I'm pretty excited for the holiday. Taking some time, seeing some family, doing some stuff. So, guys, if you missed it, I did not have a live show yesterday, but I did have some videos out where I made fun of Trump and hashtag Rake America Great Again. The best campaign. The greatest campaign of raking the forests. We got to rake those forests, or else we're going to have forest fires. It's California, they didn't rake their forests, so you see what happened. You see what happened. So, check those out if you haven't already after the show. We'll have more clips up later tonight for today's show. So, you know, if you have to leave early or if you miss something, just know that whenever there's a show, and sometimes where there's not a live show, I do still put up videos. So, check on the channel. Anyway, so we got a great show for you guys today. We have an explanation of why Donald Trump never visits the troops. Ooh. Oh, I wonder why. We also have another troop-related story. This time, the deployment down in Mexico, or I'm sorry, not in Mexico, but on the Mexican border, is coming to an end. I've got the details on that and why. Then we have Ivanka Trump versus emails. We also have Donald Trump. Some of his old tweets are starting to come back to haunt him. Then we have an abortion ban, which is disastrous, in Ohio. We'll talk about that as well. And then finally, more updates on Jamal Khashoggi. So, oh boy. So, we've got a big show today. There's a lot to cover. So let's dive into it. Well, let's start out with, of course, Trump. Okay. So you all know that President Trump calls himself the most pro-military president ever. You've heard the speeches. I love the military. I am pro-military. You will never find someone who cares about the military who's so pro-military than Donald Trump. Well, I was pretty curious to claim that when, as of so far, he has actually never visited a military base located in a combat zone. Now, of course, people have asked him, why? Hey, why is that? You claim to be so pro-military, you claim to be for the troops, but you never seem to visit them when they're in a combat zone. That's weird. How come? How come? Now, some of his excuses range from, oh, I'm very busy at home. I have a lot of stuff to do at home. It's great. You know, lots and lots of stuff, tremendous stuff. So I'm just too busy. Not only that, but he says that it isn't overly necessary. Well, sure, it may not be necessary, but you think it would be a morale boost. You know, hey, oh, look, the president came and visited us and basically thanked us for our work, right? Thanked us for what we're doing there, right? Being deployed. But he still refuses to do so. So I want to go back to the excuse where he's too busy, right? This is somebody who gets probably about 9 hours of executive time in which he watches Fox News and drinks Diet Coke and occasionally eats a cheeseburger from McDonald's. So, yeah, I will call bullshit on that ridiculous excuse. So now it comes up with more. According to the New York Times, they reported on a third excuse he's come up with. Trump aide told the Times that Trump does not believe American troops should be in Afghanistan or Iraq, and he fears a visit to the countries would, quote, validate the missions if he does not truly believe in. Now that, well, look, I don't believe American troops should be in Iraq and Afghanistan. I believe that they should also, that we should pull them out. Hey, do you know who has the power to do that? The President of the United States. Or at the very least, he can get, you know, use the bully pulpit to take a strong anti-war position and try to convince Congress to pull those troops back, or issue a declaration himself ending the occupations of both Iraq and Afghanistan. Now, if you're truly an anti-war president, well, that is something that you would do. You would end those occupations in Iraq and Afghanistan, get our troops out. I would be totally in favor of that, and I would give him credit if he were to do that. But of course, and here's the other thing on that. It would be incredibly popular. You would have both progressive left and libertarian right joining you on that effort, supporting you and saying, congratulations, Donald Trump, you actually did something great. You ended the endless wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. I would be 100% in favor of that, if only that were the truth. No, in reality, we found out the real reason President Trump refuses to visit the troops. According to the Washington Post, Trump has spoken privately about his fears over risks to his own life, according to a former senior White House official, who has discussed the issue with the president and spoke on the condition of anonymity to speak candidly about Trump's concerns. Quote, he's never been interested in going. He's afraid of those situations. He's afraid people want to kill him. He's afraid. Oh, if I go over there, people are going to come after me. People are going to... I got to stay away from the war zones. I got to stay away from the war zones. He's never been in a war zone in his entire life. So that explains it, right? He is afraid. He is a coward. Look, when he was basically going to get drafted into Vietnam, into the Vietnam War, he got Daddy to help him avoid serving. So he got deferments, of course, for education. And then when that ran out, he ended up getting a doctor to sign off on him having bone spurs in his foot. Which foot is it? Well, people asked him. He's like, I don't know. Could be this one. It could also be that one. It could be both. No, he's afraid. That's absolute bullshit. No, it's very unlikely that he has bone spurs in his feet. Okay? And I don't know, but that seems like a bullshit claim to me. In reality, of course, he doesn't want to go to war because he is so incredibly cowardly. He is so incredibly scared. And like a lot of these chicken hawks, right? People that claim, oh, I'm so pro-military, I'm very pro-military, etc. Well, just like the rest of those guys, they're actually deeply, deeply afraid of their own for their own lives, of going to war zones. In fact, he also bragged, kind of like Ted Nugent, about not going to Vietnam. For example, he once called having sex in college his own personal Vietnam. Oh, I had to avoid VD. That's my personal Vietnam. Seriously? Seriously. Look, he is afraid. This guy is nothing more than an absolute coward. Now, if you want to compare him to somebody like Muhammad Ali, who actually did not go to war for his principles, right? He's like, I don't believe in fighting this war. This is a terrible war. And so, yes, I would rather not go and go to jail, go to prison to live out my actual beliefs. Well, then you could give him credit. But Donald Trump, he doesn't care about that. All he was doing is to protect his own ass. He wasn't taking a stand against a war. In fact, he's in favor of these wars. He was in favor of Iraq long before he was against it. So, as usual, Trump is a coward and is proving that every single day. He doesn't care about the troops. He never cared about the troops. And you know what? You know where he's spending his holiday? Mar-a-Lago with his rich friends. He's not anti-war. And if you think he's anti-war, you need your head examined. Because he doesn't give a shit about being anti-war. He doesn't give a shit about the troops. He's an absolute coward. Okay. Moving on. Let me address something. No, I'm reading in the chat here somebody arguing with me, and it's kind of ridiculous. Oh, you should have went to Vietnam. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying if you actually opposed Vietnam on actual issues, like, for example, it being a ridiculous, shitty war that we should have never gotten involved in, well, then maybe he should have actually done something to oppose it. All he was doing is using his wealth and power and privilege to avoid it because he was too much of a goddamn coward to go. Whereas all these people, the poor, always get sent off to war. Poor people, marginalized, they always get sent off to these conflicts, and nobody does a damn thing to protect them. But when it comes to rich and powerful people, oh no, they get to come up and concoct every single excuse to avoid going into a war zone, to avoid any sort of conflict. And that bullshit deserves to be called out. Look, if you think Donald Trump is anti-war, get your head out of your ass. That's all I got to say on that. If you think he's standing up against the injustices of endless war, you are not thinking. You do not know Trump. Let's move on. All right. In what is basically an admittance that it was a massive midterm stunt, the White House is now bringing troops stationed at the Mexican border home. Now, these troops shouldn't have been there in the first place. As I just mentioned, they were nothing more than a ridiculous stunt made by the White House. Now, Politico is reporting that Army Lieutenant General Jeffrey Buchanan, the general overseeing the deployment, has confirmed in an interview that troops sent for engineering logistics will soon begin coming home. Now, why is that? Well, it's because there's literally nothing to do. That's because this was nothing more than a bullshit excuse to rile up the base for the midterms. Now, according to the New York Times, Pentagon officials privately derided the employment as an expensive waste of time and resources and a morale killer to boot. So it's estimated that it will cost somewhere around $200 million to station these troops on the border at the wrong place, by the way. This isn't a port of entry. You're just placing them on the border far away from the caravan is expected to go, which again is a port of entry to which they are going to go and ask for asylum. That's actually how you ask for asylum. That's how you do it the legal way. So, anyway, in interviews with the troops deployed at the border, they described their days of building barbed wire fences and trying to scrounge together amenities to make their makeshift bases more livable. Now, what are they actually doing there? Well, the Times notes that beyond that, the troops are tasked with the same types of logistical support and even clerical jobs that the National Guard soldiers sent to the border earlier this year have already been doing. So they literally basically have nothing to do. So not only are they there for no reason, they also, according to this report, don't have adequate living arrangements. Electricity is spotty. They can barely charge their cell phones. There's barely a shower. There's no mess hall. And of course, these soldiers, they're there without these amenities, and they're also are there and are going to avoid spending the holidays with their families. Why? For no reason. For no reason. Now, Representative Anthony Brown, the Democrat from Maryland and an Iraq War veteran, told the Times, quote, when you send a soldier on a dubious mission with no military value over Thanksgiving, it doesn't help morale at all. Well, of course. That's exactly what they did. They sent them with no mission, inadequate supplies, all for a political stunt. And that's all it was. Trump has literally used the military and politicized it for his own gain, or attempted to for his own gain, except that it didn't work. It didn't work out at all. They were basically hit by a blue wave. But of course, the soldiers there, they don't care about political gains. They don't care about the politicization. In fact, the military doesn't want to be politicized. And troops don't want to end up being deployed for nothing more than political stunts. So they actually care that people are wasting their time on a non-existent threat like the migrant caravan. And these troops, while being deployed in crappy conditions, are not getting bonus pay. They're not getting hostile fire pay, because why would they? Because they're not going to be under fire. They know they don't need their supplies. They don't need, there's a part of that article where soldiers were stringing up barbed wire fence, and they just left their combat gear, their vests. They're like, we don't need it. And there were several soldiers that actually had passed out from heat exhaustion down here. We know we don't need that supplies. We don't need our, bulletproof vests or anything like that, because what threat are we facing here on the border? We don't have a threat on the border. This is bullshit. And it's old, of course, to fight the so-called invasion by migrants from Honduras. It's ridiculous. Those people are not a threat. They're just people fleeing violence in their home countries, and they want to request asylum. And that's what they're doing. But according to the right wing and according to the racists, they are a threat simply because they're brown. They're the peasant culture, according to Queen Racist Ann Coulter, who contributed what she calls the browning of America. Oh my God, how terrible is that? They look different than we do, and they don't speak English. Oh my God. We must put the military out on a bullshit mission in order to appease these racist people. I can't wait for the day that all the racists go back underneath their rocks and they stay there, while America gets more diverse and actually does better for it. All right, I'm going to take a break here. We'll come back. We've got Ivanka Trump getting in a little bit of trouble. We'll go to that story right after this. Around the Nation. All right, everybody, back in the show. Around the Nation right here. Jeff Waldorf here with you. It's a little frustrating when some people equate, like, the fact that when you want to point out a chicken hawk who is basically running the government, criticizing said chicken hawk is somehow being equivalent to a pro-war position. That's ridiculous. How is that a pro-war? How's that a pro-war position? No, you point out somebody for being an absolute coward who is then using the military for his own political gains. It's ridiculous. The military actually deserves far better. And you know what would actually be way better for the military? If we didn't deploy them in places. Especially for political stunts, but also in places like Iraq and Afghanistan, where we shouldn't be at all. But I guess some people will never quite understand. Anyway, we have a super chat here. To read it from Jonathan Scott, who basically is making a point about Nancy Pelosi. I don't know if you guys know what's going on, but Nancy Pelosi is, of course, trying to be Speaker of the House again. Excuse me. Pelosi is terrible at her job, for one, and for two, the only thing that she's actually positively done, at least in my time frame, is raised money from corporate donors. So she's running to be Speaker of the House again, and there's no clear progressive challenger. Now, a lot of people would love to see Barbara Lee. I'd love to see Barbara Lee, but she's currently not running for that position. So that sucks. So anyway, the long story short here is you have progressives now that are open to supporting Pelosi. Well, in exchange for that support, Pelosi has promised to put progressives in very strong committees, right? In very powerful committees. It's not a bad thing. Nonetheless, I'm still not in favor of Pelosi. At this point, I don't know who is running that could actually do a better job. You might actually have worse, more centrist, more moderate Democrats that could take over that position. I definitely wouldn't be in favor of that. But to get to this super chat here, Jonathan Scott says, the Dems are like an obese person. For a year, they've tried the progressive new lifestyle and thought it was a struggle. And though it was a struggle, they lost weight. Nancy Pelosi is McDonald's. There's a salad, but you can do better. I agree that we can do better, but we actually have to have people who run for that position. I want more progressive people to run for that position. We don't have any. Pelosi is one of the only ones. So, look, she's like one of the only people running. Marcia Fudge is actually worse. So, on policy issues, and if there's a chance, and I can't believe I'm saying this, if she's going to end up being Speaker anyway, which is looking very, very likely, at least we could try to push her to the left. I mean, again, if she's going to be Speaker, which seems very likely, the least we can do is push her to the fucking left as much as possible. I don't know how much of that is possible. I am very skeptical of, the chances. But if she does end up giving progressives some very important committee assignments, that's not the worst thing as possible. And right, she is playing politics. That is absolutely true. She is playing politics. And so, look, we have to know that, right? Again, I think she is a loser. I think she's terrible at her job. I think a progressive should replace her. But at the same time, who do we have that is actually trying to do so? Like, we've got to get a progressive up there in the leadership ranks to be able to take over. And right now, I don't see that happening at this moment. And so that's sad because I do want somebody to challenge her. It's like we're stuck in a terrible position that we can't seem to get out of. Okay. All right, let's move on. Let's go to some emails. Ivanka Trump might be in a little bit of trouble over some emails. Now, according to HuffPost, many of Ivanka Trump's alleged emails sent to White House aides, cabinet officials, and her assistants were apparently sent in violation of federal records rules. So those rules, of course, basically force people who are in the cabinet to be able to keep their emails so that they can be archived, right? So that people can go and look at them. Well, if you have a private email, you can't do that. So, of course, they mandate that all people in the cabinet, in the White House, use government emails. You can't use a private email. Uh-oh. Now, apparently, these emails were unearthed last fall by 5 cabinet agencies that were going through emails in response to a public records lawsuit. Now, according to one former senior U.S. government official who spoke to the Washington Post about Trump's inappropriate use of her personal email account, which, by the way, she shares with her husband, Jared Kushner, under the domain ijkfamily.com, fascinating, she was apparently the worst offender in the White House. The worst offender. Wow. Now, as I said before, this violates the Presidential Records Act. But even more importantly, her use of a private email server may increase the risk of sensitive information falling into the wrong hands. Now, does that sound familiar? Wasn't there another politician who used personal email or a server that may have increased the risk of sensitive emails being intercepted by, for example, hackers or even other countries such as Russia? What was her name? Millie? Hilda? Oh, no, right, Hillary. Hillary Clinton. That's right. Now I remember. They might have said something about it during the 2016 presidential election. In fact, I think they come up with a chant about that. What was it? Lock her up. Lock her up. Yes, MAGA guys. They definitely chanted lock her up over that during the campaign, and they're still doing it now. They're still doing it now. And so if Ivanka, if it's true that she has done this, that she has sent hundreds of emails or thousands of emails using her own private email or server, well, that's kind of awkward, isn't it? Now, of course, the internet had to chime in response to this news, and I love this. Aisha Sultan says, who knew karma could be sent via email? Hashtag Ivanka Trump. Ryan Knight tweets out, Trump, Hillary's emails. The GOP, Hillary's emails. Fox News, Hillary's emails. WikiLeaks, Hillary's emails. Karma, Ivanka Trump's emails. Now, look, I say this with, of course, a little bit of a caveat here. These messages are fun, but at the same time, I also covered her emails. I thought they were pretty important. And they did point out the corruption of the DNC. So those were important. And yes, I think there was journalistic, I guess there's journalistic importance to talking about those emails. Although some of them were, benign. I should say a lot of them were probably benign. But there are some of them that definitely showed DNC corruption. So that's an important point that I will say. Nonetheless, it's still a fun little dig, especially having these emails basically come back to haunt her. Now, Brian Gay tweeted out, Ivanka Trump trying to figure out why sending government emails over a private server is illegal, even though she knew it was illegal when Hillary Clinton did it 2 years ago. Hashtag butter emails. Hashtag lock her up. Roland Scahill also tweeted out, looking forward to Melania Trump's statement tomorrow stating that Ivanka Trump no longer deserves the honor of serving in this White House. Oh, I can't wait for that as well. Palmer Report says, Donald Trump's night so far. Ivanka Trump busted for inappropriate use of private email for government business. Lock her up. The entire Trump family is going down. They can go rake the forest behind the prison. It's still only 7 p.m. Okay, anyway. Now look, seriously though, is Ivanka Trump going to get in trouble for this? I doubt it. People in power almost never get held accountable. I think it is very rare, and I think it's very unlikely that she's going to get in trouble for anything. That anything is going to happen to her. Then again, the Democrats will be taking over the House, and they're getting ready to launch a lot of investigations. So who knows if they're going to look into this? There are so many instances of corruption and grift in this administration that these emails actually seem like really, really minor. When you look at some of the more disturbing instances of things that the administration has been doing that is, or that could run afoul of the law. So, I don't know. But I do know that it's going to take a lot of investigations to get to the bottom of that grift. And if this is one of them, well, I just got to let the Trumps know, especially Donald, elections have consequences. Bitch. Oh, I love that. All right. Moving on. More emails. Oh, that's a good point. Trump in his unsecured iPhone, of which earlier on he said, I don't use an unsecured iPhone. That's fake news. Sent from his iPhone. Oops. Okay. Moving on. Now, following the report of Ivanka Trump using personal email for government business, a slew of the president's old tweets have come back to haunt him. And we are just, it's too late for Halloween too. But anyway, on Monday, on Monday, the Washington Post reported that Ivanka Trump, his eldest daughter and official advisor, used her personal email account for government business hundreds of times last year in violation of federal records rules. She was the worst offender in the White House, according to one former senior U.S. government official who spoke to the Washington Post. That's, of course, they spoke to her about her personal email account. So now that's funny. She's the worst offender. Look, man, just go back to 2016. Trump, during that campaign, made Hillary Clinton's improper use of an email server a gigantic part of his campaign. In fact, I'm going to go back. We're going to look at some of his tweets here, and you'll see some hypocrisy. Trump says, how can Hillary run the economy when she can't even send emails without putting entire nation at risk? It's a good question. Well, maybe we should ask Ivanka as well, because she might be putting the nation at risk. He also tweeted, Hillary was involved in the email scandal because she's the only one with judgment so bad such a thing could have happened. Really? Oh, okay. Another tweet. Look at the way crooked Hillary is handling the email case and the total mess she is in. She's unfit to be president. Bad judgment. Okay, so like being a cabinet member, which I don't even know what Ivanka is supposed to do, but maybe she shouldn't be in that position. And this isn't the first time we've wondered just what exactly the hell she actually does. What is she supposed to? What's her job? How is she doing that job? What does she actually do? She doesn't do anything. So, of course, she should be fired. Again, if she's not doing anything useful, then she is basically a drain. She is on government welfare. She's on the dole. She's taking government. Actually, she's not getting paid for this, but to be fair, but if she were, she would be on the government dole. But she still shouldn't be there because she adds nothing to the actual White House, does nothing. But we continue with the tweets here. Trump said, one of the reasons Hillary hid her emails was so the public Wouldn't see how she got rich. Selling out America. Now that one might be my favorite, considering how Ivanka Trump is still getting Chinese patents for her own business. Selling out America, selling out taxpayers. She's also been getting business deals with other countries after sitting in presidential meetings with foreign leaders. Now, the Chinese patents is really important because right now we're in the middle of a trade war with China, thanks to her father, Donald Trump. But don't worry, her patents, her stuff is exempt from these from these tariffs. So she doesn't have to worry about tariffs or anything like that. Oh no, because they have a deal. Met with China to get certain trademarks. And then, of course, when she gets out of the White House, she'll go back into her business and everything will be fine. She'll keep making money. More tweets here from Trump. The new email release is a disaster for Hillary Clinton. At a minimum, how can someone with such bad judgment be our next president? I would ask Trump the same. And finally, the invention of email has proven to be a very bad thing for crooked Hillary, and that has proven her to be both incompetent and a liar. Now, again, tell me how Ivanka Trump is competent and is not a liar. Look, here you have Ivanka obviously lying. In fact, here's her reason for using emails. According to the Post, some aides were startled by the volume of Ivanka Trump's personal emails and taken aback by her response when questioned about the practice. She said that she was not familiar with some details of the rules. She was not familiar with the details of the rules. Her dad ran a campaign against Hillary Clinton and kept talking about how you should not use a private email or a private server for government business. I should think that is pretty freaking clear. Oh, but I had no idea what the rules were. I had no idea that you weren't supposed to do that. Did she just completely miss the entirety of 2016? No, it's bullshit. That is absolutely ridiculous. And you know what I have to say about this entire situation? About Ivanka and her emails? Lock her up. Lock her up. Lock them all up. Around the nation. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here, Jeff Waldorf with you. Oh man. So, I got a super chat here from, what do you mean? Says, missed you. Thank you, missed you guys too. One thing that I didn't get to say is, yesterday was, of course, Patrons Day. So I tweeted out, thanks to the patrons. You guys are what really helped the show. Don't just help the show. You guys make the show happen. I would not be able to do this without you guys. So I just want to say thank you to that. And I appreciate the super chats. So thank you all. Okay. And how do you become a patron? Patreon.com/TYTNation. I'm glad you asked. Okay. Please also give us a like and a share if you haven't already. It helps out greatly. I know like Tuesdays are rough because Aggressive Progressives is going on right now. But please give us a like and share if you can. All right. Moving on. Let's go to important news going on. That is the news about Khashoggi. Oh, yeah. There we go. That's the one. Now, President Trump continues to defend Saudi Arabia over its killing of Saudi-born journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Now, I have given you the details, the very grisly details on how Khashoggi was killed when he was inside the Saudi embassy in Turkey. So, Donald Trump, unfortunately, continues to defend Saudi Arabia. Even when those gruesome details came out, I mean, he was murdered with a bone saw. Or at least they used that to dismember him. And very likely he was tortured before he was killed. Now, nonetheless, with all those details, and even with the CIA saying, we believe that this was ordered at the top of the Saudi monarchy. Oh no, I don't believe that. I'm going to stick with my buddy MBS. Now, Trump, in a statement on Tuesday that defended Saudi Arabia, continued to question the CIA's conclusion, this is from the Washington Post, that Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman was responsible for the death of journalist Jamal Khashoggi and effectively declared the issue closed. He said, King Salman and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman vigorously deny any knowledge of the planning or execution of the murder of Mr. Khashoggi. Our intelligence agencies continue to assess all information, but it could very well be that the Crown Prince had knowledge of this tragic event. Maybe he did, and maybe he didn't. Oh, maybe he did, maybe he didn't. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Except for the CIA, except for Turkey that had the whole thing on tape, and then released said tape, which it is very clear that this murder ties back to Mohammed bin Salman. But of course, Donald Trump's like, no, I don't believe in facts. I don't believe in the CIA. I don't believe in any of that. The CIA had assessed with high confidence that the Crown Prince ordered Khashoggi's death. Now, I'm not saying that we should, of course, blindly trust the CIA and everything. But there are facts here. There are facts here that are indisputable. Look at the evidence. Again, I keep mentioning the tape that the Turks made. They had the tape. They released the tape. They said, here, we have the proof. We have the proof. We're going to blow this whole thing wide open. So listen to the tape. Not only that, but we have other pieces of evidence outside from the tape, which should be enough. But of course, unfortunately, it's not enough. As you can see, the administration is still defending Mohammed bin Salman. Here you had an impersonator, a Khashoggi impersonator walking out of the consulate, fake beard and all, wearing his clothes. You also had the excuses from the Saudis, which range from ridiculous to asinine. Finally ending in, okay, yes, we killed him, but Mohammed bin Salman didn't. Oh no, he's completely innocent. We just do things, which by the way, that looks really bad on him because apparently the Saudi Arabia just does things without the Crown Prince even knowing. Like murder journalists in an embassy. Come on. I mean, look, who was it then? If it wasn't Mohammed bin Salman, who was it? Who was it? Who would benefit the most from silencing a critic of the Saudi regime? Mohammed bin Salman. come on, man. Come on. Look, we know it's Mohammed bin Salman that committed the murder. We know. I'm sorry, that ordered the murder. We know. Nonetheless, of course, Donald Trump saying, nope, I don't believe in facts. It's all fake news. It is absolute fake news. And you know what? He released a statement saying, forget about all that. Mohammed bin Salman, he vigorously denied it. By the way, look at the economic benefits of being friends with Saudi Arabia. Here's that according to the Washington Post. And in the 8-paragraph statement, the president lauded Saudi Arabia's economic ties with the United States and emphasized the country's opposition to Iran. He noted that Saudi Arabia is considered Khashoggi an enemy of the state and a member of the Muslim Brotherhood, but insisted that, quote, my decision was in no way based on that. Then what was it based on? It was based on financial ties. But look, the guy was not a member of the Muslim Brotherhood. There's no proof of that. And even if there were, you don't just murder a journalist and dismember him. This is the worst cover-up in history. And of course, they got caught. And they have the president of the United States saying, oh, no, it wasn't him. It just wasn't him. So, look, he likes the Saudis. We know this. You know why? Because they buy condos from him. Well, these are rich people. Well, these are my fellow rich people. And they give us oil deals. And then they buy my condos. What's not to like about that? So that makes me more likely to believe him when he says, I strongly deny it. It's a strong denial. It's a vigorous denial. Vicious denial. Well, that's strong. It means he's telling the truth. Plus, I get money from him. Ridiculous, man. Look, he won't end arms sales as well, because guess what? He's got pressure from all the defense contractors who want to give him money and who want to get paid by selling Saudi Arabia weapons so they can use them on defenseless innocent civilians in Yemen. That's what this is about. And not to mention other family ties. Jared Kushner is a huge friend, ally of Mohammed bin Salman. And of course, you also got to talk about the press. The press who would call Mohammed bin Salman a reformer. He is no reformer. He is just as brutal as anyone else in the Saudi regime, but he puts on such a nice veneer. And you can tell I am not planning a trip to Saudi Arabia, because who the hell would go there? They are a fundamentalist regime that still cuts people's heads off. Now, of course, Trump, well, all these right-wingers, like, oh my God, look at ISIS. ISIS cuts people's heads off. ISIS cuts people's hands off. You know who else does that? The Saudi Arabian government, which is deeply religiously fundamentalist. We're still doing business with them. And it's not just Trump, to be fair. Now, Trump is not the first American president to defend the horribleness of the Saudi government, right? No, you had a bunch of American presidents. You had, Bill Clinton. You had Obama. You had George W. Bush, all defending Saudi Arabia. All of them defended Saudi Arabia because, of course, they sell us cheap oil. Oh, we got to defend our allies there. Look, that's why after 9/11, you had the Bush family getting the Saudi royals out of the country, whisking them away. That is after 15 of the 19 hijackers involved in 9/11 were proven to be Saudi Arabians. But of course, no, Saudi Arabia, they're our ally. They're such a great, fantastic ally because we get cheap oil. Come on, man. It's sickening. It's sickening. And now they're going to get away with murdering a journalist. Now, look, would Obama have let that fly? I don't know. To be honest, I would like to think that as much as Obama and some of these other presidents, George W. Bush, loved Saudi Arabia, they could not turn a blind eye to the overwhelming evidence against Mohammed bin Salman. the crown prince, somebody who could be the next ruler, the next king of Saudi Arabia. Would they be able to turn their blind eye to it? I don't know. I would hope not. I would hope not. Nonetheless, at least we know with Trump where he stands. He will totally let this go. He is letting this go. And with Trump, look, all you got to do is flatter him, issue strong denials, be strong. And most importantly, do business with him that puts money in his pocket. You do that, you might just get away with anything. And that is a sad truth. Okay. So if we go from that disaster to another. Republicans in let me start that again. Okay. Republicans in Ohio are now looking to pass a bill that would put severe penalties on the women who get abortions, or as well as the doctors who perform them. Now, the bill, according to WOSU, called HB 565, was introduced back in March and would allow criminal charges to be filed against both a woman seeking an abortion and the doctor who provided it for her. The bill would also classify a fetus as an unborn human under Ohio's criminal code for regarding homicide. So, now the result of that, of course, would make abortion punishable by life in prison or give people the death penalty. Because nothing says we're pro-life than giving people the death penalty. Murder is wrong. That's why we will now murder you. Now, of course, Ohio has already passed an anti-abortion measure that is deeply draconian. Now, according to that, the bill was approved on Thursday. If an abortion is performed on a fetus that registered as a heartbeat, it will result in a fifth-degree felony, which is punishable in Ohio by 1 year in prison or a $2,500 fine. Now, in that bill, there are no exceptions for rape or incest, or if the mother's life is in danger. So, criminal penalties for abortion for any reason. You get raped? Well, you have to have the rapist child, or else you're going to get in trouble. Or else you're going to get put in prison. Or a $2,500 fine. And if this other law passes, the one that got recently put up, well, then you could possibly go to prison for life or get the death penalty. Well, okay, what about complications for birth? Well, here's Ohio saying, we don't care. You must have that baby. It doesn't matter if in that situation, which is very likely that the fetus will also die during those complications of childbirth, they're saying, we don't care. We would rather have both of you die having that baby. We are so pro-life. We're so pro-life it kills. Now, naturally, of course, there has been a lot of opposition. NARO, Pro-Choice Ohio, and Planned Parenthood, of course, are going after the bill. Here you have NARO Ohio's Jamie Miracle saying, quote, this could criminalize women who have miscarriages that might seem suspicious to somebody, or could criminalize in vitro fertilization procedures that might end up with an embryo. Now, look, think about all the fertilized eggs, by the way, that are lost during menstruation or are reabsorbed in the body that don't attach, right? Women don't know that they're pregnant half the time that happens. And it basically is the body terminating the pregnancy itself. Yes, the human female body does its own abortions. And look, they don't even know it. And yet, they are, or will be, according to Ohio law, they would be human beings. They would be considered human beings. So what? We're going to put women to death for an egg not attaching to the uterus? Maybe if they find out. Look, this is an example of people making laws and legislation based on complete ignorance. Now, I'm sure most of you are thinking, yeah, okay, look, they passed this law, but it's illegal. Roe v. Wade, right? Well, you're right. But unfortunately, the whole point of this bill being passed at this time is to let it get to the Supreme Court. And look, we have a conservative Supreme Court thanks to the election of Donald Trump. Donald Trump put up 2 justices, Justice Neil Gorsuch and Justice Brett Kavanaugh, who have been confirmed. They are deeply conservative and pro-life. So that's the whole point. In fact, I'm going to go to a quote here from the sponsor of the bill, who basically admits that, yeah, I want this to go to the Supreme Court. Let's do this. In an interview on Friday, she said it was crafted specifically to challenge the 45-year-old Supreme Court decision that made abortion a constitutional right. She said, "We believe Ohio is best positioned to send this through the circuit courts and to the federal Supreme Court." She said she was confident the bill would then become law by the end of the year so that they could start the process. Now look, both the House and the Senate have a Republican-dominated veto-proof majority. So even if Governor Kasich decides to veto it, they can overrule him and send this to the Supreme Court, where, of course, it will wind its way through the courts and eventually make it to the Supreme Court. If they decide to take it up, well, then here we go. Look, Trump himself said one of his litmus tests for putting a Supreme Court justice on the court was being against Roe v. Wade. So if this actually happens, if enough people in the Ohio legislature, which is deeply conservative, are in favor of this and overrule a governor's veto, who knows? In a couple of years, we may end up seeing the Supreme Court put Roe v. Wade back on trial. And who knows where it goes from here? This is disastrous. So this is how they're going to try to take your abortion rights. And it is starting right here, right now. If you are not concerned, if you are not worried, you should be. Okay. That's it. That's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you for going around the nation with me. Please, if you haven't already, give us a like and a share. Also, thank you guys for the super chats. It's really great. In fact, I've got one here from Haley Ciro. She says, "Thank you for awesome journalism. Keep kicking ass." Well, thank you, Haley. I will. And I appreciate it. Thanks for helping the show. And thanks for helping me to continue doing what I do. It's very, very important that I let you guys know how much that really helps us, that really helps the show. So thank you. Another way to help the show, of course, is to go to our Patreon page, patreon.com/TYTNation. Sign up for that. I also have a Venmo, Jeff-Waldorf on Venmo. So if you can't do any of those other things and you want to help out the show with a one-time donation, and you can do it through that. All right, guys. Thank you. I appreciate that. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, TYT Nation. We'll see you guys tomorrow.